What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into another episode of Press Coverage, where we help you gain an edge in fantasy football. I am your host, as always, Wyatt Bertolone, running solo tonight to talk about some fast draft ADPs in the Flex 4 tournament and tell you whether I am buying or selling them. First, let's talk about what the Flex 4 tournament is. It's a full season point total tournament, total PPR scoring. It's up for 10K there to first place in this tournament. 10-person drafts, 6 rounds. You're drafting running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. There's no positional limits. Then, when you're done, you assign multiplier boosters to your players, and each week during the season, the best 4 players on your team enter your lineup. Now, you can sign up with code FAST for a $50 deposit match. You should be signing up right now if you haven't already. FastDraft is a cool, unique way to play fantasy football, way to play Bestball, unlike other tournaments out there, unlike other sites out there. So let's get into some of these players. The first one I've got here is Christian McCaffrey. Right now, in Flex 4 on FastDraft, he's going 15.1 overall as RB7 in the tournament. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey in 2024. We know how this kind of went going into the season. Dealing with some injuries, but seemed like it was going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, season's about to be here. First game's about to start, turns out, and his Achilles are busted up. And he's not going to be playing. And he's going to be out for some time. He eventually comes back and plays a little bit, but he played just in 4 games before getting injured again and ending the season. In these 4 games, just 12 PPR points per game. Not that great. The good thing about Christian McCaffrey, though, is whenever he is actually healthy, he's been highly productive for our fantasy teams. In all but one of his healthy seasons, which is his rookie season, he didn't hit this mark. He was top 2 in PPR points per game. We know who Christian McCaffrey is at this point. If he's healthy, he's going to be highly productive, especially in the San Francisco offense, which is incredibly dynamic. And Kyle Shanahan is always putting his players in the best position to win. And with Christian McCaffrey, he can do so many different things with him. So what do you do with Christian McCaffrey, knowing this injury history? Well, for me, he's worth the risk in tournaments. In your managed leagues, maybe you want to avoid Christian McCaffrey where you can't count on him and where you only have to beat 11 other people. Well, in a tournament, you're trying to beat a lot more people. When you're trying to beat a lot more people, you have to take more risks. And Christian McCaffrey is worth the risk because we know what that ceiling can be for him. If he's playing, he's highly likely to be a top 5 running back. There's no doubt about that. There's no question about the talent. He's getting up there in age, but he's not old enough that I think you really have to worry yet because, as we know, at this point with the most elite players, there isn't just a gradual decline, and we're going to see them fall off over time. No, elite players just play at their elite level until eventually they're done. Now, of course, he could be hitting the wall now, and this could be the year. But I don't believe that we are there yet. I think he just dealt with some injuries last year, unfortunately, and probably came back a little bit too fast. I don't think that they fully assessed what was really going on with Christian McCaffrey before the season, and they kind of botched that year for him. But all counts are Christian McCaffrey is healthy going into 2025. To me, he's worth the risk at this price. The second player I'm going to talk about today is Breece Hall. His ADP over in the Flex 4 tournament is 25.6 as RB11. In 2024, 15.1 PPR points per game, the lowest of his career, seen as a bit of a disappointing season because of this. Saw his opportunities drop just slightly from what we were used to the year prior, but still over the last 2 seasons, 18.3 opportunities per game. And, talking about those points per game of 15.1 being a disappointment, I kind of look at this as a little bit of a positive. That was the worst he's been in the NFL so far. We know that he is much better than this, can be much better than this. That Jets offense in 2024 was a little bit broken. I think the Jets team as a whole struggled a little bit after they lost Robert Saleh as he was fired as head coach. A little bit of a scapegoat, I would say, there for the Jets. Now, going into 2025, we've got Justin Fields in at quarterback. Now, we know that mobile quarterbacks like Justin Fields don't pass as much to the running backs. And pass catching is a big deal of what Breece Hall does. It's very important to him. The thing, though, about the Jets is that they kind of need him in their offense, and they need him catching passes. And that's why, even though him coming off of his lowest point per game season of his career, he's still a buy for me here at this ADP because I think the Jets need him to be highly productive on their offense. They need him as a pass catcher because after Garrett Wilson, there's really not much to speak of. Alan Lazard doesn't inspire confidence. Josh Reynolds doesn't inspire confidence. Their starting tight end is a rookie. I just don't think that the Jets can get by this season without including Breece Hall in a high manner. Now, we've seen coach speak out of the Jets camp about how they want to get all the running backs involved. And I believe that that's true. I also believe there's a little bit of that coach speak going on where they just want to talk up all their players. I like Braylon Allen. Don't get me wrong. He's no Breece Hall. Breece Hall should out-touch him by a large margin. Even if we see Braylon Allen getting a good amount of opportunities, I think that will be because the Jets are going to rely on the running backs a lot just in general. Braylon Allen could be useful for this offense, and Breece Hall still get the opportunities he needs to be a highly productive fantasy player for our teams, especially in tournaments like this. I think he's another player where you want to take the risk on someone who might be a little bit lower in ADP because of recent history. Last year, going into the season, we were drafting Breece Hall in the top half of the first round. Now here he is at 25.6 overall, RB11. That's a price that I want to attack. He's too good of a player, I think, to be passing up on this ADP. Like I said, this offense needs him. And I think that we need him on our fantasy teams as well. But before I get to my third player of the day, we're going to take a quick moment to hear from the Podfather.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early Bestball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
We're back on press coverage talking about some Flex 4 ADPs over on FastDraft. As a reminder, you can use code FAST to get a $50 deposit match for your first time deposit match over there. Make sure you are drafting on FastDraft today. But my next player, Tyreek Hill. His current Flex 4 ADP, 33.41 as wide receiver 16 in 2024. Not good. 12.8 PPR points per game, the lowest since his rookie season. His previous two seasons with Miami, 23.5 and 20.4 PPR points per game. Weird year for Tyreek Hill. Comes into the season with a wrist injury and possibly dealt with it all season long. We don't truly know how bad it was for him. We saw the Dolphins offense also change a good bit in 2024 as the offensive line was so poor that they had to change the way that they were running their offense. We saw a lot more very quick short passes to Jonnu Smith and Devon Chan instead of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as well. We really saw their opportunities and fantasy points drop significantly, especially Tyreek Hill. Just a massive drop in performance from the previous 2 years to this one. He's 31 years old now. There's reason to believe maybe there is actual drop-off here. Is there a drop-off? Is it the wrist injury? Was it just the way the Dolphins had to change their offense? What's going on here? Well, for me, Tyreek Hill is a sell. And I know that I was already talking about Christian McCaffrey dealing with injuries, getting a little bit older. Well, I think the risk is worth, the price of entry there. Tyreek Hill, I don't think this risk is really worth this ADP. I am a little bit too worried about where Tyreek Hill is at this point. Like I said, 31 years old now. We might have actually seen the drop-off last year where I think the drop-off wasn't as significant for Christian McCaffrey. After the season was over, he talked about how he wanted off the team. He kind of walked that back immediately, but that moment still happened. We've heard him talking about wanting to retire earlier than other players normally would in the past. It's hard to say where his mind is at this point. And let's be honest, I don't know if the Dolphins actually fix their offensive line enough to make me think that they're going to be able to run their offense too much differently than they did in 2024. I hope they will. I think they will. I'd like to think Mike McDaniel is a good enough offensive coordinator and head coach to be able to craft an offense to make sure his best players are getting the ball as much as possible. But also, what if Tyreek Hill is not their best player anymore? What if we did start to see that drop off? What if the end is actually coming soon for Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill is a player who's relied upon his natural and incredible athleticism. He's a one of one in that way. And if that is starting to go for him, maybe he's going to have a lot harder time producing in the NFL. In fact, I would bet that he's going to have a lot harder time producing in the NFL. And I unfortunately think that we're starting to see that happen now. I don't want to have to pay this high of a price. Wide receiver 16, even, that being as late as 33.41 overall, it's still too rich for me to take a risk on Tyreek Hill right now. He's one of the players that I'm avoiding the most this offseason across everywhere, but I'm especially going to do it here in the the Flex 4 tournament on FastDraft. It's just not worth the risk to me. The vibes are so bad right now for Tyreek Hill. I'm not into it. The fourth player that I'm going to talk about today is DJ Moore. His Flex 4 ADP on FastDraft is 37.00, wide receiver 18. In 2024, 14 PPR points per game in that disastrous Bears offense in 2024. That really, the offensive system, let's just be honest, is one of the worst I think we've ever seen. Shane Waldron just really was not there for this team, setting it up really poorly. And they're in another team where the offensive line was dreadful and was doing this offense no favors. Caleb Williams barely had any time. And let's be honest, it was about Caleb as well. He did not look like we expected him to coming into the NFL. His bad moments in college happened way more in the NFL than we'd like to see, holding on the ball for too long, running himself into pressure sometimes, which also did not help DJ Moore. But DJ Moore season, 14 PPR points per game, that's not super impressive. But considering the offense and what was going on, not that bad. He actually had a career high in receptions with 98, but he did have the lowest yards per reception of his career with just 9.9, a little bit speaking to that offense. As the season went on, they basically just threw DJ Moore screens just to get the ball in his hands. I think really just to try and get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands as fast as possible as the season went on to try and get him, settled in. But this offseason, there's been a lot of changes for this Bears team. We've got the new coaching staff in place with Ben Johnson, which is a huge boon for everybody involved there. They've really worked at improving this offensive line. They've made a lot of investments there. They also then draft Colston Loveland in the first, Luther Burden in the second round of the NFL draft. These are really big improvements for this offense. Now, I'd like to think I'm actually ahead of most people when it comes to DJ Moore this offseason. But wide receiver 18, it's a bit rich for me, if I'm being honest. Like I said, I'm excited for him, but this price is a little bit too high considering we don't know what this Ben Johnson offense is going to look like. We don't know if DJ Moore is going to be the massive target earner like he has been in the past. Is it Roma Dunze? Is Luther Burden going to make a big impact? Is Colston Loveland going to garner a huge opportunity share as a rookie? Maybe none of them do, and the ball gets spread around so much that's tough for any one of them to meet their price. Like I said, I like DJ Moore a lot. This price is aggressive, though, considering everything that's going around him. I think it's also especially aggressive when you look at some of the wide receivers going right after him on FastDraft in this tournament. After DJ Moore, you can draft Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, Tetairoa McMillan, all three of which I would rather have than DJ Moore. Rashee Rice, we already know when he's on the field with Patrick Mahomes, he was one of the top wide receivers in all of fantasy football, and he was pacing to be top 5 last year before the injury. Now, he's got some legal troubles, but sounds like that could be postponed until next year. In fact, it's trending towards it not affecting 2025 at all. Sounds like he's healthy. In fact, we're getting a lot of encouraging videos this offseason of Rashee Rice moving around that make it look like he's ready to go. And as long as he's healthy on that field with Patrick Mahomes, I definitely want Rashee Rice over DJ Moore. Devontae Adams, this guy who's continuing to produce at an extremely high level. He even did so in the Jets offense last year. Now he moves over to Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Much rather have Devontae Adams this year than DJ Moore. And then Tetairoa McMillan. who I think is an incredible rookie going to a really good situation. I don't think we would have said that was a really good situation all that long ago, but after Bryce Young's resurgence in the second half of 2024, start to believe that he can actually support a high-end fantasy wide receiver. And Terrell McMillan on the Panthers is easily the number one target there, no doubt about it. Going to be a massive target earner in that offense. I think he's going to produce really highly. So again, I like DJ Moore. I do not like this price. I'm going to be higher than him than most people on him in a lot of other places, but on Fast Draft, I'm avoiding this ADP. The fifth player I've got for y'all today is George Kittle. Flex 4 ADP of 42.66 as tight end 3. In 2024, 15.8 PPR points per game, which was first among tight ends. Yes, first among tight ends, beating out the amazing Brock Bowers rookie season and Trey McBride season as well. He had his 4th 1,000-yard receiving season in 2024 and was really just the best and most reliable option that Brock Purdy had in 2024. Now, looking forward to 2025. No more Deebo Samuel as he's now gone to the Commanders. Brandon Ayuk is returning from a multi-ligament knee injury, and we don't know when he's going to be back. Juwan Jennings stepped up in a big way in 2024, but that's the only real sample of we have of him of producing at a high level over any amount of period of time. Then we've got Ricky Pearsall, who was out for a part of the season doing to be shot before the season. You know, no shade there. We understand completely. Amazing that he even came back, but he comes back. We only get to see a little bit of him at the end of the season. What we saw was pretty good, but we only have that tiny little sample of Ricky Pearsall. I bring all this up to say, well, George Kittle again is the most reliable person there for Brock Purdy. There's a lot of questions around George Kittle, but George Kittle's still there doing his thing. And there's a really good chance that he's leading this receiving core again in 2025. Perhaps even easily. Juwan Jennings, like I said, he's got a little bit small of a sample of seeing high play. Can he continue it? Did we see a 27-year-old breakout? I don't know. Brandon Ayuk, when does he come back? When he does come back, how healthy is he? How can he produce? Ricky Pearsall, can he build off of that last couple games of the 2024 season and become a really big producer for them? I don't know. I have some faith in it. He's a first-round pick. He's highly athletic, looks really talented, but we don't know yet. They're projecting him to be, but we don't know. So George Kittle, kind of a last man remaining, but he was the number one guys there to begin with, and now he's the last guy remaining, which is a great place to be for a top fantasy asset. And yeah, in Fast Draft, there are no positions. You just draft players and they play. So you're not getting a positional advantage with tight end. And I think that's part of the reason why his ADP is a little bit lower potentially in these drafts. It's because people see tight end and think, well, I don't have to play a tight end in these, so I don't have to value George Kittle higher. But if you look at what George Kittle is doing, he's playing like a high-end wide receiver. He scored 1.8 points per game greater than DJ Moore in 2024. He scored 0.7 points per game higher than Breece Hall in 2024. And I think that he can repeat this season in 2025, which is why I think you should be invested in this ADP. Despite there not being any positions in Fast Draft in this tournament, in Flex 4, you can still draft a tight end like George Kittle and feel really good about it, in all honesty. I think that he's going to get that 5th 1,000-yard receiving season. We're going to be looking at another 8 to 10 touchdowns pretty easily in this offense. He's going to be helping carry fantasy teams to championships and tournament wins like he could help you in Fast Draft. So to quick recap, Christian McCaffrey, he's worth the risk at RB7, 15.1 overall. Yes, I realize that a lot of people were scoring in 2024, but his ceiling is just too much to ignore at this price in tournaments. Breece Hall, we're buying that ADP too, 25.6 overall, RB11. I really think he has to be a big part of this Jets offense, and they're going to make sure he is. Yes, Justin Fields is not going to throw to running backs too much, but the Jets are going to force targets to Breece Hall because they need that pass catcher, and running quarterbacks open lanes for the running backs. So we could see a very efficient season out of Hall. Tyreek Hill. we're not getting into this one. We're selling the Tyreek Hill ADP, 33.41 wide receiver 16. It's too rich for a player where all the signs are pointing towards him going down right now. We might have seen the wall last year, and I don't want to be betting on that in 2025. DJ Moore, also selling, wide receiver 18 at overall 37. Love the player, still feel really good about him, for being honest, but the price is too expensive for that offense and how he could be in a different role. We don't know if he's going to earn as many targets as everybody else around there. Just a lot of moving parts in Chicago. I don't want to have to bet on anyone in the offense at that high of a price. And then lastly, George Kittle. We're buying tight end 3, 42.66 overall because this dude can produce like a high-end wide receiver, and I expect him to do so in this Commanders offense while we don't have all these other players around him, and we've got too much uncertainty on what they can do in 2025. But that's going to be it for this episode of Press Coverage. I appreciate all of you out there. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at YB_FF. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to everything Player Profiler. Make sure you sign up to FastDraft. If you haven't yet, use code FAST for that $50 deposit match. Get to drafting over there. It's a blast. You're going to have fun. You can win a lot of money. It's a good time. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you next time.